Well, Dr. Carolyn not being here is part of the way it works. That's just the way it is. And I have to tell you that our plan for this is another demonstration of the way it works. Because we sat down on Wednesday, we knew exactly what we were going to do, we planned it all out, and of course everything has changed significantly. And that's the way it works. So we're going to do this today, and and as Michael said, it'll be fun. This is the second in a series of 4 weeks. And what we do every January is to talk about these first 4 chapters. If you haven't read them, it's like 35 pages. And it's 35 pages of a summary of this much of a book, and it's absolutely amazing what's in there. I had the honor, and I want to thank Michael and Kathy for asking us to do this, because I got a chance to really read this again and again and again and again and go, oh, that's how it works. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but Reverend Carolyn, being the kind of person that she is, she sent some information to go with her talk, even though she wasn't able to be here today. And so I had the honor of reading a little bit of that. So this is her version of the way it works. And understand, I'm a practitioner of 2 years. Connie's a practitioner of 30-ish. Carolyn was probably before God. The last time she's in my brain class, and she said 48 years. So that's a very, very long time. So we're going to start with the wisdom of Dr. Carolyn. She says, good morning, everyone. I'm not able to be with you this morning as planned because God is having its way with me. On page 37.4 in the Science of Mind textbook, Dr. Holmes writes, therefore, our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle which, of itself, is without limit. I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit. We do that. We decide what our limits are. It is ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So, it is not a question of its willingness, nor its ability. It is entirely a question of our own receptivity. So how receptive are we? Dr. Carolyn says, I know that God is always working through me by working for me. So the reason I'm not with you in person this morning is that I have not opened to receive the totality of the wholeness that I am in truth. You see, Rich started coughing on Tuesday of this past week. And it has been, and this is in bold print, consistent. He coughed and sneezed all day, and then it seemed to be worse at night. As a practitioner, I began to treat that he was whole, complete, and perfect, while I made him hot tea and lemon and covered him with a quilt when he fell asleep in exhaustion. I continued this practice every time I heard him cough. But about Thursday afternoon, I began to notice that my receptivity to the truth, that he was whole and complete, had waned. It was hard to focus on wholeness when he seemed to be demonstrating something so short of that. You can just hear her saying this, right? He went to the doctor and got a Z-Pack and was sent home to take the meds. At that time, I began to notice how tired I was from being awake all night when he had a coughing spell. That little doubt about my own physical well-being was the beginning of my limiting my belief of wholeness, because I began to sneeze and cough as well. Notice how she's telling us how it works. If we limit it, that's exactly what happens. If we expand it, we get more. And we get more of the same. Because what she says next is, and then the fear set in. I knew I was to speak today, and I started thinking about letting my team down by not doing my part. My thoughts held me hostage to the idea that I would be sick like Rich. Not a good focus. Consider that. And thinking about the way God works, I know it can only be done according to my belief, and where the focus goes, the energy flows. My focus was certainly not on God, but rather what I feared, which has finally come upon me. But there is always a message in every experience. You see, this is the 4th week Rich and I have not been at church due to the busyness of the holidays and being gone for different events out of town and missing it today because we're both sick. The worst thing about being gone so long is that we love coming to Sunday celebrations, and we miss seeing all of you, as well as the reminders about our spirituality that we receive from the lessons. Emerson wrote, and you know she's going to do this. She's going to tell you these things just by the way she does it. Emerson wrote, "We lie in the lap of an immense intelligence, which makes us organs of its activity and receivers of its truth." I'm going to say that again, because to me it just resonated. We lie in the lap of an immense intelligence, which makes us organs of its activities and receivers of its truth. So this is the message I have received from the immense intelligence that is revealing itself to me as an, in quotes, immense cold and cough. Thankfully, the intelligence doesn't fault me for not being a receiver of its truth all the time. Meister Eckhart, the 12th century mystic and theologian, wrote, "God finds joy and rapture in us. I take that to mean that I am beloved even if I am sick." I also know that this intelligence is telling me that both Rich and I need to stop. The message is slow down, take a breath, take some time to rest. It's too bad we didn't stop a few weeks ago and get off the merry-go-round of life. But like so many of us, we just don't listen to that still small voice that is always speaking to us until we are flat on our backs and have the time to realize that God is for us by making us take care of ourselves. At last. I know that the condition I am in today will not last, that it has come to pass away, and I am so grateful I know this truth. The good news is that we are loved and always surrounded by the presence of the invisible Spirit, no matter what it is we are demonstrating. And remember, even though it may take some time to reshape the basis of my thought, which is on the in Science of Mind on page 38, there's never been a time when I have not found God in its abiding place in me. Remember the story of the drunk standing under the streetlight who watched a schoolmate drive by in a limousine and said, "There but for me go I." I'll say that one again. There but for me go I. Rest assured we are listening, resting, nesting, and taking care of each other, and knowing that God has not moved from us, but we have just let busyness get in the way of our divine truth. Healing is simply revealing the truth of infinite good, and that is what we are doing. And so it is. Blessings and love to all of you. So you definitely know that Dr. Carolyn is with you. And you definitely know that the three of us had some say-so until The Way It Works showed up and said, we're going to do it differently. So now I'm going to give you a little bit of my own The Way It Works. Last week, you heard about in this panel, and again, thank you for that, we discussed the nature of the thing itself, as being either universal energy or mind or intelligence or spirit. By the way, this is on the first page of the chapter that I'm talking about today, chapter 2. Find consciousness and individualized centers of expression through us. Through us. It is what we think and believe that gets expressed. And that man's intelligence is this universal mind functioning at the level of man's concept of it. Now, according to Ernest Holmes and the book, that this is the essence of the whole teaching. So if I could get this, if I could understand that this whole concept of God is what comes through me, I'd get it, right? I wasn't going to share this with you because it just sort of came to me this morning, and then I realized it came to me this morning. This is the way it works. Share it. I've been a practitioner for a little over 2 years, and in that practitioner work, I've loved doing the one-on-one talks with people and sitting with people and talking on the phone with folks that called. I've loved doing High Watch. You've not seen me up here doing contemplation very much. I wasn't able to do that Now, I'm an educator. I'm leaving, by the way, I'm going to Florida next week. It's 80 degrees in Florida. Sorry. I checked this morning. It's 80 degrees in Florida. I have 2 workshops to do. I have a full house in both of those. I don't have any problem doing any of them. But for the last 2 years, I've had a struggle doing contemplation. Connie's been my buddy on this one. She's heard me. I'm sure she's going, oh my God, what's she going to say? But I've been afraid to be up here. And part of the reason I've been afraid to be up here is because I can't give you what I don't have. And if I wasn't ready to give you this, I couldn't stand up here in front of you and say, this is what I believe. I can teach about the brain, I can teach about how to learn to read, I can teach about parenting. I couldn't teach about this teaching until I knew for sure that this was the way it works for me. And I've had the experience, and again, I thank you, Michael, for allowing me to do this, because when I teach about anything, what I always do is read it, and then read it again, and then read it again. And then what I do is I look out there and say, where in my life is this showing up? Where is it real? Where is it showing me the way it works? And I got time after time after time this week of getting to see the way it works. And every single time I would do that, I would go, I get it. If I get it, I can share it. And so that's why I'm up here today, because I can share it, because I get it. So let me tell you a little story about the way it works. And there were plenty of them. If you need more, I'll be happy to share those too. But let's just start with one. Last week, I was fully prepared to come to the center because, number one, I was doing High Watch. Number two, we had a panel that I wanted to see because they were going to do this and I was going to get an opportunity to see how they did it and I'd feel better about it. And number three, we had a community meeting. So I'm ready to go. So I go out in my garage, I get dressed, I go have some breakfast, I get dressed, I go out in my garage. Have you seen one of these? Oh, yeah. It's been beeping for 2 weeks. There's this little chirp, chirp, chirp. It's a fire alarm. Now I knew that the battery was going out, but I couldn't find it. It's in the garage somewhere. I figured it was on the ceiling. Most of them usually are, or on the wall. I had looked in every corner of the ceiling to find this sucker, and I couldn't find it. And I looked, and I looked, and I looked. So I came out that morning, and I thought, it's going to chirp at me again. It didn't. It beeped at me. Beep, 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 pause. Beep, beep, beep. Really loudly, and it wouldn't stop. And it kept going, and it kept going. And I'm standing there going, I can't leave with this noise. What am I going to do? Oh, well, shoot. I really can't leave with it. So I go back in the house, change clothes, go get a ladder, and I'm looking everywhere. I found it. Clearly, I found it. It was way, way up on a shelf. And it was way in the back, and I pulled it out, and it's doing this beep, beep, beep thing. Took the battery out, and I went, oh, great, I still have time. Run back in the house, put my clothes back on, go out in the garage, I'm ready to go. Because I have these 3 things I want to do, right? I hit the garage door opener, the garage door goes up halfway and sticks. I kid you not. Halfway and sticks. I push it back down, it goes down. I thought, okay, try it again. Halfway and sticks. I can't get my car out. I go back in the house. I change clothes. I go back out, I get on the ladder, I get the WD-40. I'm spraying these things, right, the rails, so maybe it'll go up. Hit the button, goes halfway up, and sticks. I walk back in the house, and I'm going, I'm not going. I mean, there's nothing I can do. This is the way it works. I can't get there. Bob says to me, the last time you wanted to use my truck, it wouldn't work, but my truck's fixed. My truck's outside. Would you like to use my truck? Sure. I changed clothes. Third time. I go out and get the car, the truck. Now, understand that last Sunday, if you'll remember, it was pouring down rain, and I live in the canyon. I get halfway down the canyon, and I know that the water is now up to my hubcaps. And I am spraying water everywhere. And it's going to rain for another at least 2 hours while I'm here. I'm thinking, I don't know if I can get home. So I got halfway down, stopped, and said, this is silly. You keep getting these messages, don't do it. So I turned around and I came home. And I go to my little chair. Duchess used to call it a prayer chair. It's my meditation chair. I go sit in my meditation chair, and I'm going, I'll do high watch from here. And then I realized 2 weeks ago, I had said in my prayer time, I need to have some time to contemplate, to think about the way it works, to think about how all of this goes on. And I'd been so busy, I hadn't had any time. And all of a sudden, it dawned on me. This is the way it works. It may not always work the way I think it's going to work. It's not always the way I plan for it to work. But this is truly the way it works. So listen. So I sat there and listened. I sat there and was able to hear again and again, and to watch and to experience the last 2 weeks the way it works. So I can stand up here today and say, this is the way it works. This is truly the way it works. In the chapter, Jesus is summarized by saying, it is done unto you as you believe. How much do you believe? I had to ask myself that question while I was sitting in that chair. How much do I believe? Well, I can tell you I believe a lot more than I used to, and before last week. And I can also say that what it says in there is we can only recognize it as much as the power is there that we can use. So how much power do you have? How much belief do you have? How much faith do you have? Only you know that. Only I knew that. Connie's going to tell you a little bit more about how that works, the way it works, that power and what it is to be there.
I'm going to give you this big book.
Great.
Yes. Well, here. I know that beeping, and I don't have patience. So. Well, good morning. It's just been a very interesting week. When you get an assignment, it's interesting how the universe actually does have its own plan for you. So after listening last week to Randy and Sandy talk about the thing itself, I want you to know I got it. I understand the thing itself. Now, do you all understand it? Did you get it last week? Yes. Yeah? Okay, because we're proceeding from that point that you do. So my next question was, well, I understand it, but how does it work? So where's the manual? Where's the plug? Where do I plug it in? Do I need a 220 outlet? How do I get this divine presence to work in my life? You know, you don't need a switch to turn it on or off because it's on 24/7. Unlike your cell phone, it doesn't need a very special Wi-Fi hotspot because it has infinite internet service. You don't have to be rich or smart or beautiful or talented for it to work because it rains on the just and the unjust. My favorite, you don't have to earn it to make it work. Consider the lilies, how they grow. They work not, nor do they toil not, nor do they spin. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to make it. You don't have to break it. You don't have to borrow it. You don't have to steal it. You can't force it. this thing itself, the way that this thing itself works. The only way that it works is, as you've been telling us, through us. On page 39, Dr. Holmes writes, "We must accustom ourselves to the concept of the impersonalness of the law, the availability of the law, and the accuracy of the law." And what Dr. Holmes is saying here is the nature of the way that it works, that it works for everyone equally, that it is always available, and that how it responds is precise and accurate. If you plant carrot seed, you get carrots. So the question is, why is it that sometimes we don't feel it working? If this thing is there and it's working through us, how come sometimes I think I feel it, sometimes it's not working, sometimes I see it working for Mo, but it's not working for me, and sometimes when I really need it to work, it's not working? Well, there is the rub. Because as it's working through us, what about if you got a lot of gunk in the way? You know, and this is where Scott Wyman used his wonderful projector metaphor, which I actually have the metaphor of the projector is at home, because the metaphor of this brilliant bulb that is the light of God shining out into the world broke. But don't worry, God doesn't break. So God's light is indeed eternal. But the metaphor is that here you have the projector, and the light of God is shining out, and it's projecting into the world this beautiful radiant white light. And then we start to put these transparencies over the light. And these transparencies are our beliefs. They can represent, they can be unconscious. They can be old karmic lessons that we didn't clean up in the last journey here, so they're here. Can be old cultural beliefs that we still have somehow mixed in our DNA. Then as we start living our life, we get our family beliefs. And they start really weaving this story of our life that we continuously tell ourselves and that we've come now to believe is our reality. And then there are the wounds of life, all those hurts. And they seem to have like this heavy thread of trauma that runs through this fabric that makes the story even tougher and stronger. And even with that all those filters over the light, there is still a little bit that can squeeze out. And that little bit, this beautiful 360 watt bulb that I'm replacing, that 360 watt bulb is just like shining magnificently, but here you've got stacks and stacks of beliefs. And the little teeny bit of light that can get through, that is your life. That's what's being projected out for all of us to see, because it's that pure light of God, that pure thing itself, working through us, going through those filters, and then projecting itself out into the world. But that is not a bad thing. Eventually, those wounds and stories get so thick that it gets really dark. And we start experiencing anxiety, depression, fear. The world is just really getting narrow. But that is the catalyst that brought most of us here. We had to be suffering hard enough to get the message to show up here, and being here, we start getting these amazing tools. We start realizing that our stories are not who we are. We start realizing that there is a greater truth about us, and then there's the infamous brilliance of, we learn that if we change our thinking, we change our lives. And that's really what happens. So when we're in all this darkness and we're suffering, I hear myself going, well, where's the light now? Where's this eternal light, this omniscient light? I'm sitting here in the dark. Well, guess what? That light bulb is burning just fine. It's all of our transparencies, all of our beliefs that have blocked the truth from being able to express in our lives. We also here are given a lot of tools on how to actually do this spiritual stint, where we can start clearing out those clogged arteries that we've been impacting year after year. So, you know, the tools that we learn are meditation, clearing our mind, centering, getting calm. We also have classes like Scott Wyman's class, where we learn about the core trauma issues that are basically the main thing that keep us from being able to get that light to work through us. As I'm sure you all know, there are a multitude of books out there on childhood issues, shame, vulnerability, being in the present. I mean, the information is really quite abundant for us. And last but not least, there is spiritual mind treatment, where we learn that when we put our energy on the truth, that all those dramas that are no longer getting the energy just start to atrophy and drop away. The bottom line is that the degree to which we are an open vessel, to that degree, the light works through us, and it works for us, just like what Joni and Carolyn, their message was, that even though it may be showing up in a way you didn't expect, just like we didn't really expect all the changes that were going to happen today, that is the nature of it. You know, it's there for your greatest good. And if we take the time to look and see what we're projecting out, it is giving you the information that you're looking for. It really is what you're looking for, you're looking with. Okay? So, in closing, this quote is the same one that Dr. Carolyn used, but it is for me the quintessential quote about how this thing works. This is on page 37. Dr. Holmes says, "Our belief sets the limit to our demonstration of a principle, which of itself is without limit. It's ready to fill everything because it is infinite. So it's not a question of its willingness or its ability. It is entirely a question of our receptivity. The more we open the aperture of our receptivity, and the more we release those beliefs that are not the truth, the more that true light of the thing itself can work through us and for us by moving through us." And that's my understanding of how the thing works. And there is a manual. It is chapter 2 of the Science of Mind book, the way it works. And so it is. Thank you.
Carolyn sent one more little piece that we decided that would maybe help just solidify this. It's called God Made Visible. The man whispered, "God, speak to me," and a meadowlark sang. But the man did not hear. So the man yelled, "God, speak to me," and the thunder and lightning rolled across the sky. But the man did not listen. The man looked around and said, "God, let me see you." And a star shone brightly. But the man did not see it. And the man shouted, "God, show me a miracle." And a life was born. But the man didn't notice. So the man cried out in despair, "Touch me, God, and let me know you are here." Whereupon God reached down and touched the man. But the man brushed the butterfly away and walked on. The good news is that you are loved and always surrounded by the presence of the invisible spirit of life. Hear, see, notice, and feel the good that is all around you. It is all derived from the common stock of God, and so are you. Namaste.